Unusually so, I'm not going to spend half an hour introducing myself and introducing the person who's going to be speaking to you, albeit to say he's a very dear and great friend of mine, and I have chaired him on a number of occasions. We're all here to listen to Nigel Paine talking about innovation. So, round of applause for our speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Ready to go. Excellent. I'll just do a little bit of a preamble. I promised in the documentation around this session that I try to engage you in discussion, and that's what I intend to do. I promise you no one will get out of here without having thought something, discussed something, made a point. I think that it's a good way to galvanise after we've sat through Nicholas for the last hour. Slightly passively, let's have a little bit of activity today. So I want to talk about innovation. I changed the title because the story of this session is that this is the true story. I was flying on a plane from Philadelphia to Los Angeles, and I was really pleased with myself because I just subscribed to GoGo Air, or whatever it's called, where you get paid internet access on US domestic flights now. Pretty good paid internet access. So I'm playing around with my GoGo Air, and up pops Don Taylor saying, "Where are you?" "I'm in Miami, for God's sake." And I said, "I'm on a plane." And he said, "Conference, can you give me a title?" And I said, "Give me half an hour." And he said, No, give me a title now." So I just dreamt up the title, and he said, "Right, I'll need some words. When? You've got 25 minutes. So I did that blurb in 25 minutes on the plane, flying across the middle of the US on the way to Los Angeles. And I did it, and he said, "Oh, great, thanks so much, that's really helpful." I never looked at it again, thought about it again until last week. And I looked at it, did I really say that? Is that what I was talking about? So what I'm trying to do is get us talking about innovation, and I'm getting us to talk about moving learning forward. Why am I doing that? Because I've got a kind of two obsessions at the moment. Obsession one is, what the hell is stopping you? Why aren't we seeing more things bubbling up, moving through ordinary training operations in ordinary companies? Why is most of what we see pretty much most of what we see like it was last year and the year before? When Don asked about what's going to happen this year, and I said big data, and someone said mobile. The woman next to me said, "Not mobile, it's too early. No, it's going to take another 4 years. Probably 4 years, maybe if we're really lucky 3. It's too early." We've been saying that for 5 years. It's too early next year. And there's so many great ideas that go wasted. There's so many opportunities that aren't taken. So I wrote 3 articles in the Learning Technologies magazines on what is stopping you. How do you break through some of those barriers? And you can read those if you like. But what I want to focus on now is innovation, some ideas around innovation, and how we get things moving, how you get things moving. You don't need McKinsey consultants to help you. They will hinder you. They will complicate everything. Some of this stuff is very simple and very straightforward, but it's about learning changing. Why? Why am I obsessed with this? Because the rapid pace of change in organizations, I think there's a gap opening up between the expectations of organizations, the amount of data that they can handle, the things they know, and what the learning operation knows, what it does, what its perspective is. And the bigger that gap gets, the more vulnerable they are. And learning organizations are being closed down. And largely they're closed down, not because everyone thinks learning is rubbish, but because they think that the gap is too broad to bridge. That what is being offered and what we need are way too far apart. Too much is the same as it was, the same as it was, the same as it was. And many of the people working in learning know this. They know that things have got to change. They know they've got to do stuff, but they're not doing it. They're not able to do it for all sorts of reasons. And I've tried to pinpoint some of those. And I just want to surface all of that today in the next, however long we've got, 56 minutes. So, I'm not going to start by speaking to you for 45 minutes. What I want to do is ask a question. What is the simple difference that you can perceive between change and innovation. What is the difference? Just chat. Just say hi to the people around you. Just shake hands. If you don't know, you know the person next to you, go and say hi to the person. Just have a little chat. What is the difference between change and innovation? Let's start with that. Okay. Can I have some answers? Hi. All right, I'll just sit back for 55 minutes, and you probably would have just as good a time and just as interesting a session. Come on, what's the answer? I'll repeat it for the microphones.
Yes, we got change as innovation.
Yeah. Okay. Different versus new. What did you have? Something?
Facilitate an outcome.
So which is facilitate an outcome? Change is facilitating an outcome. Innovation is? Right. So again, new as opposed to... But if you facilitate an outcome, that's kind of new, isn't it? If it's changing, it's new. So what is the difference in new then? One is bigger new, is that what you mean? Kind of more impact new, as opposed to...
Yes,
Okay. Okay. What about you? Change?
We can change. It can be on a continuum. It can be planned.
Yep.
It's not necessarily good. It can be backwards or forwards.
Yep.
Whereas innovation tends to be a break with the past.
Okay.
More about creativity, lateral.
Okay. So innovation is more a step.
Yeah.
Change is a process. Innovation is going somewhere. Okay. Just take one more. What about this table? You look very engaged.
I can see innovation being the trigger and change being the reaction.
Okay. So they're linked. So that you want to innovate, you've got to do that through change. They're certainly related. No innovation without change. Whether you have change without innovation is another issue. One more. Just one more.
Innovation is transformation that changes the way we do things.
Okay. And change is?
The journey to it.
Change happens.
It helps you, innovation is what you do.
Okay, all right, so passive and active. Let me just give you a really useful quote, the one I really like. This is my simplest definition of innovation, and it's by Drucker. And he did it in 8 words. And that isn't a picture of me, by the way. But what Drucker said is that the innovation is a new dimension of performance. So you were getting it. But the issue that separates innovation from change is this new dimension. It's not doing the same thing a little bit better. It's not messing around the margins. It's actually going to that table there, that step up is incredibly important. Change, which creates a new dimension of performance. A lot of people, a lot of organizations have illusory ideas about innovation. When you look at what they tell you is innovation, it's actually just a series of minor changes, minor modifications, changing around the edges, making a little bit of a step forward. It's not innovation. Innovation is that great leap forward. Why do we need great leaps forward in learning? My answer is because we're making great leaps forward in the way we work, the kind of processes in work, the nature of work, the nature of products, the nature of service. There are these huge big leaps that are occurring, and we have to match those leaps in terms of learning innovation as opposed to just a bit of change. So, one more little perception, and we'll have some more talks. I love this little picture. It's a simple little picture. But the way I twist this picture to suit my needs is just focusing on the drops and focusing on the splash. That up until now, we have spent all our time in learning making this drop absolutely perfect. We've crafted the drop. We've spent inordinate energy looking inwards on the drop and making sure that it does everything it should be, that it's perfectly instructional designed and it's perfectly suited to the purpose that it's supposed to be created for, and we've spent hardly any time on the splash, on the impact. I think we need to reverse it. I think one of the key deliverables now for everyone in this room is a bigger splash, to quote David Hockney. We need to start looking at impact, make more impact on the organisation, on the individuals who work in the organisation. And don't worry too much. I know that in terms of physics, a drop is a drop is a drop. But if you go with my metaphor, don't spend so long on this. Spend a lot of time on that. And this, if this, to extend it, if this is all about a product, this is all about support, social reverberation, I don't know, all the other things that wrap around, that enhance this little drop and make it much more significant and much more impactful in the organisation. Go for impact. Impact is the way to make friends. Impact is what is increasingly being expected of you. And the second thing, generate electricity. What Negroponte said was quite interesting, that the fact that the tablets were light in a dark world, in a way, almost literally, because they were powered. And he said, you know, the tablets aren't all that brilliant, the content is pretty much rubbish, but it's light in a dark world. It works. Negroponte is really focusing on impact. And I've seen some of the... One of the things that kind of got me very disillusioned with the one laptop per child was I looked at some of the content that was being put out on it, and it was pretty awful. And you think, you know, just get someone who knows how to design better material on that. It's just kludgy. It doesn't work very well. It's crude. It's over naive and simplistic. The stuff doesn't quite work. And I kind of got caught in my own petard. Therefore, the whole project is a waste of time, because they should have really crafted better materials. I actually think he's right. That in some ways, who cares the quality of the stuff? Let people explore, let people get into that little world, and the impacts will start to reverberate. And if he'd have spent all his effort trying to make it perfect, the machine perfect, and the content perfect, he'd only have 30 out there. And they would all be pilots. He's gone for, let's see what happens, let's see what makes sense. And I think there's an analogy for all of us in the way that he's approached it. And part of what I want to talk about is that we don't get that step change by doing pretty much what we're doing now. We're just changing it a little bit. And this isn't particularly innovative. I stole this from Don Taylor, from his webinar. Basically, classrooms, you could argue this is a pretty good, that's really innovative because there's a screen and a projector. But basically, it's not changed much from the 19th century. That if we've got formats which aren't broke, we don't need necessarily to fix them, but don't just talk about we've got a new room, therefore we're really in the innovation business. There are some things which are pretty much going to stay the same. You've got to focus elsewhere if you really want to make that step change. You want to change things. Let me just give you two quotes. One from Nolan Bushnell, was the founder of Atari. Rosbeth Moss-Kanter was the, I think, ex-Harvard Business School. She was the editor of Harvard Business Review. Mindless habitual behaviour is the enemy of innovation. The routine, the things that go on because we've always done them like that. Everyone who's ever taken a shower has had an idea. It's the person who gets out of the shower, dries off, and does something that makes a difference. And I hope that this session this morning, this is our shower. We're having a shower. We will generate ideas. The difference that you make will be whether you walk out of this room and say, that was okay, that was not bad, I met a really nice person, got a few business cards, this worked, that didn't work. The difference is those who go out and say, I'll do something. I'll do something. They're the ones who make a difference. And what I want to argue is that you can all do something. But a lot of the more conventional models of innovation kind of work against you. This is the standard linear model of innovation generated after the Second World War, we think, round about 1945. This is the way most organisations still approach innovation. They do some basic research, then they do a bit more deep research, then they go into development, and then when they've gone development, they do production and diffusion. Linear process going from one thing to the next to the next. Why is that a bad model? Come on, you tell me. Have a couple of minutes around your tables and tell me why this is not the model that should be in your head when you leave this room. You work that. So you work that side, I work this side. So we've only got one mic. Right, okay. Go to the and then go to the Okay. All right. Denise and I get some feedback from you.
Feedback first on this side of the room. Come on, I'm sure you've got something to feedback.
The implication for us is that this is almost the preserve of a small number of people, and you've got your private venture funding or your R&D funding, and you send those people off to go and do it, and there's very little dialogue, so there's less input. On the other side of it, I think we recognise that there has to be some funneling and some decision-making process as well, otherwise you're forever getting excited about yet another idea and end up doing nothing.
I think you're absolutely right, that on both fronts. But one of the problems of this is once you get into this area, it's all locked down. There's no feedback loop anywhere in here at all. And it's slow, and at every point, you can say no. Basic research, nah. Applied research, nah. Development, not working. So most things don't get through that process, and the ones that do tend to be almost the most conventional, if you can have the most conventional innovations, because of the nature of that. On the other hand, I think you're right, leaping around saying we've got 26,000 ideas to implement may not be the most successful way forward. Having 26,000 ideas is better than no ideas. The key is how do you go from 26,000 to 50? That are worthwhile. And this process is not a good way to do that. You put 50 ideas into basic research. How long? This is 3 years. The world has moved on. You've been fired already by the time we come through. So you're absolutely right. Let's go on this side. Anyone on this table? This table here. This is a great table. And you're a great spokesperson. Lisa.
Yeah, we said much the same thing, about a bit like Nicholas was saying about being scared of errors and kind of sweeping them under the rug. This way, a more kind of open and risk-taking approach, kind of calculated risks. Is a much better approach to innovation.
There's no error here, but by definition almost. That by the time it's gone through all of this, it's got to be right. Otherwise, we've wasted all this money. And it's also not fail fast. This is fail very, very slowly. So it doesn't align with the kinds of things you're talking about risk-taking, speed of implementation, trying out 4 things and seeing which one has any kind of traction at all. So we need to talk about this because it's easy to say, try 1,000 things, fail early. How do you implement that? How do you take that idea back? It's kind of suicidal, walking back in and saying, we're going to try 23 things, 21 will fail. It's not career enhancing necessarily, even if that model is the right one to do it. That's why we've got to get away from the linear model, but we need some alternatives. One more table. I didn't come to this table. Oh, two more. One your side, one my side. Go on. Yes.
I think we said that very much along the lines of what's already been said, a linear model itself is flawed, an
Yes.
iterative model would be far more useful.
Yes.
The landscape changes so quickly sometimes by the time you get to the end, things could have changed
It's too late.
completely anyway.
Yeah, I think so. All of this is right. Pick one more table.
I think we should have a Dutch perspective here.
We said it's too slow, it focuses too much. What else did we say?
Pretty much it's just unresponsive to whatever else is going on out there.
It's a sealed model. It's based on the notion that an innovation department is the best way to deliver innovation, and that's a broken model. The problem is that if you're in learning, how do you get your perspective into this kind of framework? Almost impossible, because there'll be other big things that are needed that will take time and get into research. So they're locked in. You're in a queue that probably you never get to the front of the queue. It's like asking the IT people to modify the enterprise system to suit your needs. You'll never get to the front of the queue because you're always going to be midway, lowish priority. All right, this is a really brilliant piece of slide work. Listen, what do we do then? So tell me how we work this. There we are. Other models. Tell me what they are. I'm not going to tell you. Let's work on the point that you said about try many things, fail some of them, experiment. How are we going to turn those into a model? There's other ideas of using the power of the network to reach out to customers, to the extended enterprise, to find out the things that are frustrating people, to galvanize ideas from the people using your services as a learning department, to reach out through the organization and say, what do you like, what do you don't like, what can make the biggest difference? Reach out to the executive team and say, how could we make this much, much better than it is already? How can we make bigger impact? Asking, rather than thinking that you've got all the ideas in a small team of 5, because you're almost replicating the linear model at that point. All right, let's come up with 3 really good models that you could implement. Again, discuss. Take your ideas. How could you take that idea and turn it into a model that you could take away? What is the model around all the things we've discussed? We know, we agree generally, the linear model doesn't work. We've got to be faster. We need more ideas. We've got to have room for failure. We've got to respond to need much quicker. All of those things we agree. Right. So how do we take the next stage? What kind of a model would help deliver that? So just think about that on your tables for a few seconds, and we'll come back. Okay. Okay. What I'll do is I'll just leave the room and quietly come back in 20 minutes. These could be the best conversations that you're going to have all morning. Before I ask you for some of your models, I'll give you 1 or 2 examples of models of innovation which may or may not strike a chord, and they may fit into some of the things that you've been working on. ASDA, under Archie Norman. one of the things that Archie perceived when he worked in Asda was that the staff we have are the staff we have. And they're not highly paid, and Asda can't pay premium over Sainsbury's or Tesco's or anyone else. So the people he had were the people he had. And Asda was failing miserably as a supermarket. It was third but plummeting, and probably on the high road to bankruptcy. So how did he galvanize Asda? How did he make it different to the other supermarkets and get back to where he thought it ought to be? And there were 3 or 4 components to Archie's philosophy, if you like. The first one was he wanted every member of staff to feel that they were part of the rebuilding and success for Asda, not the executive team. Most of them left or were fired. So he changed the executive team, he changed nothing else. The second was that some sort of visible reward, but not very expensive visible reward, for achievement. And the third was to wrap that up around a different experience for the shopper. So there were elements that are worth noting. The first one was he asked staff for new ideas. So he generated ideas for how they could make the stores better. And every single person who responded got a postcard handwritten from Archie saying, "Thank you very much for your idea, I really appreciate it." And he went on the basis that if an idea doesn't actually destroy the company, you probably should implement it, even if it takes things not very far. Because out of the things that take us a little bit, there'll come the idea that takes us miles ahead. One of the ideas that he implemented was, and it's still true in Asda, there used to be security guards on the front who were kind of uniformed and stood there to stop you running away. If you nicked anything, you know, they'd be on you and get you on the floor before the police arrived. He replaced security guards with what were called greeters. And they were staff members who volunteered. Often they were older members of staff. And their job was just to say, "Hi, welcome to Asda. Anything you need to know before you start shopping? Trolleys are on the left." And they'd be there to ask basic questions. Before I go in, I want to know where the nappies are. Right, third aisle on the left. So he created this network of greeters. They didn't make any money for Asda in the sense they weren't checkouts or stocking shelves, but they were there. Massive impact. So the minute you walk into Asda, the first thing is a smiling face on the door. Differentiation. The second thing he did was that each best team in every month, each team that sold the most or did something special in that month were given the fleet of Jaguar cars that he'd taken away from the executives that he'd fired. And what he found was that giving them back to the lease company was going to be more expensive than keeping them. Rather than just keep them in some garage somewhere in Leeds, they polished these cars up and they said, "You've got this car for a month." The result was that the cars got beaten up because people weren't used to driving big Jaguars, driving home to accounts and say. But if you can imagine what it would have been like to have come to work on the bus and drive home in a leather-seated Jag. And he said they brought them back, they were scratched and dented, we didn't care, we fixed them. So the next group, they had a perfect Jag, we fixed it. So that became a kind of legend in the company, the people who got to drive the Jags. And that was sizable. After 2 years, we're talking hundreds, not tens of people. So he did that. And the third thing he did was worked on pricing. And again, this was something that came out of the staff. Rather than say we have the lowest prices, we've got this week and that next week, that confused people. And he knew that from his staff saying people are completely confused about what's cheapest. He created the Asda price promise, which was, on average, if you shop with us, it's going to be cheaper than anyone else. And that's still there, the Asda price promise. So that combination turned a kind of dull, failing supermarket into such a success that Walmart bought them. And everyone thought, this is it. Asda will be going straight back to where it came from, hell on a handcart with Walmart, not renowned for its customer relations or its staff relations. The opposite was actually true. Walmart started a process. Walmart now offers healthcare. Walmart values its staff. It's got them on education and training programs in their hundreds of thousands, promising to get staff up to minimum literacy. So Walmart, although it's not, doesn't feel like Asda when you go in, is a different Walmart from the one before they purchased Asda. And in comparison, Asda's very, very small, insignificant, just a toehold in the UK. Walmart is the biggest employer in the US. So the little minnow can influence the giant, and it influenced them around the way of thinking things through differently. But they did it on this basis of let's engage with the staff, generate ideas, and have a process for evaluation and implementation. It's quick, and let's not say instantly, no, that's a crap idea. Say yes, and we're going to do this, not no, but. So to keep the motivation high. How does Google do innovation? How does Google do innovation? It's kind of, yes, tell us.
They give their staff time to learn products.
They get out of the way, is the answer. They allow staff to align with whomsoever they choose, to take on projects that are out of the mainstream, and if they're good enough, they get implemented. But that is one project out of 10,000 gets the full Google treatment. Google Mail came out of that 2 days. Google Mail. Who thinks of Google? You think of search, you think of mail immediately. Google Earth came out of that process. And there are quite a few things that were launched and failed, and we don't talk about now in Google. Google Wave. Who talks about Google Wave? Nobody. That came out of that process. But for all those big things, there are hundreds of little things where they're managing really interesting and innovative aspects of the company. Let me give you an example, which is more on our street, on our level. The learning team have an analytics team. They work with data. And Google's theory is there is a mass of data that they collect that they do nothing with, particularly learning and performance data. One of the things that Google did for leadership was to trawl through the 360 and the appraisal data going back 3 or 4 years and try and work out what the great people in Google did that was different to the okay people in Google. And they came out with 7 statements about what Googlers should be doing in leadership. And they chucked out the entire edifice of leadership development where they put people in universities and they develop material, and they said, we're only going to focus on these competencies. If we can make everybody better, it's better than making a few people exceptional. They will become exceptional anyway. And what Google claimed was this process improved the worst 75%, the worst managers by 75%. So it focused on raising the standard for everybody, simply by saying, this is what we expect you to do within the context of Google. Very simple. New task for the analytics team. They're looking at the Google diaries of staff, and they're looking at the intersections. So who meets who? When do they meet them? Why do they meet them? And what they're seeing is that there are clusters, there are individuals and groups who are way more important and popular than other groups. And it's not part of the hierarchy. It doesn't fit into the organizational charts. But they're the key people. They're the hubs, the enablers, the people with cool ideas who people want to relate to. And they're using that data to try to look at how they harness those people a bit more, how they expose them a little bit more. And a third example from HR and Google. On the personnel form, which everyone has, your picture, your address, and all that kind of stuff, they added 3 lines. Totally free text. Line 1, what I know a lot about, what I'm an expert in. Free text, write it. Second line, I'm willing to be contacted about this. Tick or not tick. Third line, I'm willing to mentor on this. Tick or no tick. Unbelievably simple. What that created in Google was this massive, extraordinary energy around the organization where people in the US were talking to people in India, were talking to people in Europe, were talking to people in Ireland. It just generated a massive amount of conversations around key areas that the company needed more people to know about. And they did it with no intervention whatsoever, apart from that 3 boxes on the personnel sheet. That was the idea, that was the innovation. They just let the thing feed in a very Google way. Just go sort it out yourself. Go find out. If you need to know something, go find someone who will talk to you. Go find someone who you can have a conversation with. Or even better, go find someone who will mentor you for a few weeks or a month and get you up to speed. So huge amounts of energy, huge amounts of knowledge transfer, huge benefits to the company, cost practically zero. Practically zero. That wouldn't have come out of the linear model. Let's develop, let's think about the research and carefully work it through. This was just, we'll see, we'll see, we'll see. Ideas emerging from the bottom of the pyramid, not ideas coming out of the great guys at the top. They have ideas all the time. What really makes an impact in Google are the people who have the ideas coming out of the bottom. So those 2 models, let's hear about you. Has anyone got a model that they would like to share, first of all, that we can talk, before I pinpoint people and make them uneasy? Is there anyone saying, oh, I'd like to talk about a model that we discuss on our table, a model that will work in this context? Got a new model? Has anyone got a new model? Somebody?
Yep, got one over here.
Good.
There you go, Ger.
Thank you, Gail.
Yes, it's a bit connected to the Google, but it's an Australian company called Atlassian, and
Yes.
people get 24 hours to deliver an innovation. It's called FedEx Days.
It's called what?
FedEx Days.
FedEx.
Yes.
FedEx Days. Oh,
So
right.
it's
Deliver
about
the innovation in
deliver.
24 hours. I get it.
You choose something to work on with whoever you like to work on.
Yeah.
After 24 hours, you have to deliver.
Yes.
Only FedEx didn't like it, so they renamed it to Ship It Days.
Fair enough. Atlassian are an interesting company. When we were in the BBC, we worked with Atlassian at the very early stages of their development as a software company. We bought all our blog and social networking software from Atlassian. And what we liked about them was, even though they were a small company, we got a lot of stick from the IT people saying, they'll be out of business. How do you know they're still going to be around in 6 months? Why are you taking this risk? We liked them because they immediately latched on and thought we could learn a lot from you. So we had a big influence on them, they had a big influence on us, and we were impressed. We're still impressed. Now they're huge. They're a massive company compared to the little group that we knew 7 or 8 years ago. But FedEx Days, so in other words, fix-it days. And some software companies do that. You know, they have all-nighters. I'm too old to do all-nighters, where they lock down at 6 p.m. and then they work all night on a project, and at 6 a.m. they launch it to an unsuspecting and horrified world, and then they carry on working the rest of the day. So that idea of instant, get it going, there's a huge amount you can do in 24 hours. If you create the space for people, not everybody, but the people who want to work on an issue and to not just look at the problem, but actually solve the problem. And Amazon do something different, something slightly different but the same. They have these intense problem areas. Basically, if Amazon deal with a human being, they've got a really major problem there. Everything can be dealt with through email and automatically. You don't like something, we'll send it back. Here's a box. It's all automatic process. We refund your money. Don't worry about it. That's okay. Where the problems become intractable, that's when the company gets involved and they talk to people. And the way they solve those problems is they put a small team on an intractable problem where everything is taken off the table. Everything is open. How are we going to solve this problem? And they do the rule of 6s in Amazon. They look at the problem, they go back one stage. What caused that problem to be there? Then they go back this stage and say, what caused that problem to be that problem to be that problem? They go back 6 stages to try and track the real root cause of the issue. And they fix it at root. They don't window dress. Like, you can fix anything. Amazon could just throw money at problems and say, here's a lot of money, shut up and go away, and the problem still exists. Their view is if it's a big intractable problem, we have to go back, the rule of sixes, back to the source of the issue, and we deal with it. And we deal with it in whatever way we think will solve it. And if that has implications for the whole company, we change the way we do things completely. Like their relationship with suppliers has changed completely because of problems they've had with packaging coming out of suppliers. So they now work with suppliers before they even sign them up on issues around packaging. So they don't end up with broken stuff going to the customer, and it's not Amazon's fault, it's actually the fault of the supplier. So they are prepared to make big decisions and go back on stage. But yeah, that's a very simple model, the ship it day. Pick up the problems. So do you know anything more about Atlassian Gear? Do they store up problems for the ship it days, or how do they decide what to work on?
In my opinion, it's just people know what they would like to work on.
Yeah, so they've got it in the back of their head.
Yes.
And then the day comes and it comes out. And who wants to work with me on this? Who wants to deal with this?
Yep.
Okay. Another one. Ship it days it's a great phrase. Yes, behind you. It's entirely your side, the back there. And then we've got another one. Ollie wants to talk.
We have a digital immersion workshop, which is actually led by the R&D functionality.
Yeah.
People from all areas of the business are invited to ensure there's a proper widespread of all departments. It's 2 days. You get to choose one of the 8 topics, and that then defines the group that you work with. But because we're trying to get digital ideas out there quicker, faster, more rapid, we'll then also teach people how to design an app in a prototype. And by the end of the second day, every team has to have developed a full working app that we can then use, and the best ones straight away get put into production and go out there, whether they're for internal use or external to our customers. And it's something that you don't need any skill beforehand, but everyone, if you're working in different areas of the business, will bring a totally different idea and different way of doing it, and that works really well.
And it's also fun, is it not?
Oh yeah, hugely fun.
Yeah.
And
Just
you,
breaking out of the routine.
Yeah, and it's also the networking as well.
Yes,
Within
so
a large
you're meeting
company,
people you would not normally meet.
people, yeah.
And building respect for people that you might not have thought were particularly important or clued in or whatever. So just one last question. Can you just name one thing that's emerged from that? Can you describe one app that came out of that process that is in use and making a big impact?
Yeah.
Go on then.
I work for EDF Energy,
Yeah.
and anyone that follows EDF Energy on Facebook can now download a new app to make, I don't know if you've seen our adverts with the little orange blob that dances. His name's Zingy, he's much loved. And the app, you can actually now play with him and make him dance and move and upload your own photo backgrounds, which has just gone down bigger than we ever thought it would. Predominantly it was for kids, but adults have really got involved in it, and it's just free publicity then for the company.
Yeah, and also EDF have designed an iPad app or an iPhone app where you can read your own meter. They used to do that, email you every so often and say, would you go and read your meter? Now, basically, whenever you're passing your meter, you can put the data in on the app. It automatically uploads. You could do it whenever you like. So you don't have to do it every month or 6 months. You're free to do it so that they've got a more regular data stream that they can monitor. So it's hugely in the customer's in EDF's interest to be able to monitor. The customer feels, hey, I'm getting more useful factual data. I'm going to get more accurate bills. Everybody wins. Really simple little app. Just added on the iPad. Just a few K. Okay. Other models. So that's the kind of intensive workshop. Get stuff done, but the important point about it is it's multidisciplinary. It's not the one group of individuals. It's bringing in multidisciplinary teams to use their core skills together on a problem. Okay. What more models?
We have one in IT at Immersion. We have a group of people called Stakeholders of Innovation.
We're just going to give you the mic. Won't be a sec.
we have a team called the Innovations team, and it's a group of basically geeks that enjoy coding and putting stuff together in their own time. But what they've actually done is they're a victim of their own success, because now, as a company, we're dependent upon the apps that they've created. So now we're taking what they've done in their own time, whether they wanted to learn how to do a new Java platform coding or whatever. And they've created these really useful apps. And we as Airline said, oh, that's really cool. We want to put that into production. And now it's sort of, we're taking what they're thinking and playing with, their toys, and we're actually putting it into the main business area, which seems to be working fine. However, now it's becoming commercialized. It's not fun for them anymore, because now we're sort of giving them timelines. And
yeah, they might want paid as well.
Yeah, no, God forbid.
Outrageous.
How dare they?
So how is that a model that you could replicate? How could other people in this room replicate that?
Because I was thinking about this when I was talking with my colleague. It's also similar to the Google model. It's actually giving people the space, the time to play, to sit and say, well, you know your business better than anyone. No one from senior management or above is going to bother you. If in an ideal world you could make things useful for yourself, like the Dyson, innovations, what would you come up with? And just give them that space.
Okay.
And not pay them.
Ollie, there's one. Denny's down here. Ollie. Just in front of you. Yep, just right in front. Ollie.
Yeah, just giving space got me thinking about a company I interviewed up in Edinburgh, energy company, water-based energy. And they had implemented a model for innovation that they called the license to innovate, where any staff that had an idea, however big or small, were given a license to, which basically meant that they got some of the time freed up to work on that idea. They got access to experts across the business on areas in technical aspects. If it was a technical idea, they weren't particularly technical. They can go and get help from the different departments. And just gave them space and resources to build up that idea before it went through an evaluation of any sort. So if they were still confident that it was an idea that would have value to the business at the end of that process, then kind of the official presentation or evaluation of that idea would take place, but not until they had that time.
How many people? Was that just one or two, or hundreds, or somewhere in between?
That was open to any staff at any level.
It was open to everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think it's very important. There are some kind of important bits coming out now. The first one is this idea of permission. So and that's not a formal thing. Maybe in the case you've just described, Ollie, is more formal. You get something, you get a license. But if you don't feel you have permission to think, permission to come up with ideas, permission to go forward, then nothing is going to happen. You can have the most unbelievable models within the place. No one's going to use them. So there's an issue about how you organize your team, the way you make that team feel about processes. The second thing is, there's this, how do you get the intelligence? How do you get the information that pulls the issues and problems to the fore so you can work on them? So where are your abilities to reach out and understand what the issues are? How do you trawl for things that should be worked on? How do you prioritize those things? And then how do you get the team energized? And thirdly, this stuff has to be fast. But no one wants 2-year development cycles, the kind of linear model. You've got to do it fast. It's better to do it fast and not be perfect than perfect and slow and ineffective. And fast means motivation, means people feel they've got some power and control. People feel they can make their lives better, the company more effective, or the organization more effective, customers happier. It's all about those things, isn't it? It's speed, engagement, trust, and a process that rapidly surfaces issues and allows people to work on them. Right. Any other models that anyone wants to share? And I'll give you one or two more.
Quite a lot of the stuff has been about things that are done internally with employees, but we've had some success bringing the whole system into the room. So working much more closely with customers, and that's had a big effect on some of the engineers, because sometimes the first time in quite long careers, they're actually sitting with somebody that they identify with who has a particular problem. And that has been a revelation for quite a lot of them. So getting the system in the room and working with them.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you. When we rebuilt the intranet in the BBC, the first thing we did was we didn't have any models or plans or diagrams. We had blank walls and post-its. And we said to people, what do you look for? What do you do first? Where does your eye go on the screen? We mocked up screens with post-its. And we said, would that be more effective? Would that work for you? Then we'd try that model with another group. And they'd say, yes, but if this... And that's how the thing was built up. Purely from engagement with customers, the people who are going to be using it. And exactly like you've said, a revelation. A revelation. Yeah.
Another example, I think it's, from the BBC. It's just my neighbours, because I live on Media City in Salford Quays, and they're talking about a connected studio, and they're actually bringing people, as I understand it, from outside the company, local suppliers and local sort of innovative thinkers to actually come in and work on a particular problem that they have, that they want to advance their future media and technology department, and so they, bringing people from the outside in a couple of areas, first to come up with the ideas, but then at another session, once they've brought it down to what we're going to work on, then bringing people in to work on those ideas and see where they can take it.
Yeah.
So it's not just internally; it's actually bringing people from the outside in.
Yeah. The iPlayer was born out of bringing in a group of 20 people who were called BBC Destroyers. There were the downloaders, the games players, etc., etc. The media server people, all the people who thought the BBC was completely irrelevant and who, where they wanted something, they just stole it off somewhere or the other. And we brought them in and talked to them, and out of that engagement, the iPlayer. Because the decision was, if we don't give it away and we don't make it more flexible, then they'll get it anyway. We've got nothing to lose, and we might well enhance our reputation as an organisation if we can do that. So it was not engaged from within, this is a brilliant IT idea. It was customers saying, we want this. Yeah, these things work. They work. How many do that? Not nearly enough take the time and trouble to do that. And often all they want is a cup of tea and a biscuit. You don't have to pay people vast amounts of money to do that kind of thing. I'll just give we're going to finish in 2 seconds. One example, last one. Southwest Airlines in the US, reputation of being a very solid, innovative airline that has really not had any major crises and storms that the airlines suffer. It's carried on being consistently good, doing a pretty fair job, good relationship with its customers. The learning team in Southwest have a meeting twice a year. The first meeting, the team take on little projects. Now, those projects are often to go and find stuff out. We need to know a little bit more about this. Find out what's going on in that space. Are there any interesting companies doing stuff there? So not about things that they need immediately, but stuff that they could well need. And those people there are empowered to take a bit of time and effort and trouble to go and find out. Then the next meeting, they all report back and say, I found this fabulous company. I really thought that could make a difference to us. And they debate and look at, well, maybe we should take that further. Others say, well, it's all kind of okay, but there's nothing much I've discovered that is of great interest. Okay, we'll move on. Then they set the next task. So every member of staff takes on a kind of, they call them scouts. They take on a scout role within the team. So they represent the whole team in this area. And they're given permission to talk to people. Not much travel, but they can even do a little bit of travel, but mostly they do the research online and by making phone calls. But the impact of that is that there are very few surprises for Southwest. They know what's going on out there in the environment, and many learning departments don't know what's going on out there. And they have a team of people who are highly motivated and feel that they're in touch, on top of the job, and they really enjoy that aspect. So it actually bleeds into the day-to-day stuff, which is maybe less interesting. It bleeds into it and it makes their jobs richer and things happen. They innovate fast. So I think we just go for last slide now. This one here. I think there's something in this wheel which I've been using forever. I keep changing the words, but it's basically the same thing. That if you can create an environment where there's personal learning, if you can turn the personal learning into organizational learning and shared knowledge and cohesion, you increase performance and you increase innovation. If you increase performance and innovation, it creates an environment where people feel they're learning, they're moving forward, which creates a better organization, which is more cohesive, which increases innovation, which increases performance, and so on. It's breaking into that wheel. So ultimately, it's about getting your people engaged and finding the right methodology that will ensure that that process happens and that you pop out with things that are delivered and not great ideas that we were going to use but we never got round to it, or projects that kind of started but we didn't finish. It's all about a sense of achievement and delivery, and that feeds into innovation. I'm done. Thank you very much. Thanks for staying. I appreciate your time. Thank you.